Hey folks, Gwe. I did a video on this particular phenomenon last week, but there's more to be said. So, as you are probably aware, a drag queen is on the top of the contemporary Christian music charts. And somebody told me also on top of the country music charts. I thought this was fascinating, especially when you know how it all happened. See, the album's been out for 10 or 11 months, right? The music's been out there selling for 10 or 11 months, and it's done okay. But it wasn't until about 2-3 weeks ago that a Christian worship leader, well, he began spitting some vitriol about this particular music artist, about this drag queen. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Doing the whole sinful bit. Well, once that got out into the public, yes, of course, all the allies decided they were going to start buying this album. They were going to start downloading this music. They were going to start searching it. They were going to start watching it. They were going to start listening to it. They were going to make it. They were going to make it a hit. And allies from all over the world stepped up saying, we've never heard of this person before. We didn't know they were out there. We didn't know they were doing this kind of thing. I didn't know there was a drag queen out there doing contemporary Christian music until Sean Feucht offered his rebuttal and his disapproval and his vitriol. And now the world knows exactly who Flamy Grant is, or is learning. The world is listening to Flamy Grant's music, letting her words touch their heart, rejoicing in the experience that she's having. Sean Feucht, I mean, let's be fair. Sean Feucht, who is, again, he's a worship leader. I think he probably has aspirations to be more. I think he's a pastor who wears a guitar. I'm not entirely certain what his title is, but he wanted to cause harm to this person, to their career. He wanted to minimize what the world thought of them, what they probably at that point, I mean, they didn't have a huge following. He wanted to, I would argue, harm their understanding of who they are. He wanted to harm their self-identity. Not today. Right? Now there's this passage in the book of Genesis. It's part of the story of Joseph, the guy with the fancy coat of many colors. It takes place towards the end of Joseph's life, actually, towards the end of his story anyway. It takes place after the death of his father. See, Joseph had been sold into slavery by his brothers, and Joseph's life, it kind of went downhill from there, and he had his ups and his downs, but he was in prison, he was in jail, he was accused of all kinds of horrible things. He faced the death sentence several times, but eventually he made his way and became quite successful. Well, after his dad died, his brothers thought, geez, this guy might be harboring a grudge. We need to go to him and apologize. We need to make sure that we're going to be safe. Joseph, again, at this point, he was incredibly powerful, very rich, and could easily have just snapped his fingers and had his brothers and their families all wiped out. But when they come to him and they apologize, he says, listen, even though what you wanted to do was evil, even though it was meant to bring evil to me, God used it for good. And God used it to save many lives. And I can't help but feel at this particular point, as I rejoice that Flamy Grant is the success that she is, because I feel like I'm seeing God do exactly the same thing. Sean, what you had intended for evil, God chose to use for good, for the welfare of many, many, many people. Millions of people are going to be impacted by her music. God's message of love, the gospel, God's grace, forgiveness, mercy, the challenges of becoming and remaining a Christian, the challenges of a Christian life. Man, those stories, that message, God's message, it's reaching people that, it's reaching people that I never would have been able to reach. It's reaching people that Sean Feucht never, ever would have been able to reach. It's reaching people that most contemporary Christian music never would have reached. It's reaching people that most pastors, most churches, most denominations would never have reached. What Sean Feucht intended for evil, God took and went, no, son, not today. Not today. Because of your vitriol, because of your anger, because of your evil intent, I'm going to use those things. I'm going to use those things to fuel the rising up of a prophet. Your hatred and your evil. It's going to create a gravity. It's going to create a gravity in the gospel. The gospel's going to get to those people that I so desperately love. The gospel's going to get to those people that I so desperately want to be in a relationship with. The gospel is going to get to those people who the church, for the most part, has either ignored or forsaken. What you intended for evil, God intended for good. People that Ed Travers was never, ever going to reach are hearing the gospel through the beautiful words and the music of Flamy Grant. The people who have long ago chosen to shut out the voices of people like Sean Feucht. They're hearing the gospel through the experiences of Flamy Grant. Those people who have long ago chosen to, have long ago decided that some of us are nothing more than a big mouth with a wonderful head of hair. Those people are hearing the gospel through the words and the music of a gentle, loving, compassionate, authentic soul. Does this mean I'm supposed to say thank you to Sean Feucht? I don't know if I'd go that far. I still don't believe hatred has any place in this world, and for what it's worth, I think perhaps if Sean had decided to promote Flamy Grant as a colleague, as an up-and-coming artist, as someone whose music and lyrics and persona has something to offer the world, well, I think the same thing would have been achieved. He chose the low road. But even there, even in that behavior, even with that action, God was able to say, I got this from here. And God was able in this moment to do something truly amazing. At least that's how I'm seeing it. I am incredibly grateful for this ministry. I'm incredibly grateful for this person, for Flamy Grant using her gifts the way that she is, because this is the gospel going out to the margins, out to the edges, beyond where many of us would have found it acceptable for the gospel to go. in a way, very, very, very few of us would have been brave enough to try. What you chose to do out of evil, God has chosen to use to do something good and wonderful and powerful for the sake of many, many, many people. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord's face be made to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up to you. May you always know the peace of being in the Lord's presence. And I pray that any hatred we offer into this world towards our brothers and sisters, God would take, turn, twist, and use for something wonderful. Use for something amazing and loving and powerful and beautiful. I pray that every stitch of vitriol and evil and malice that we use against one another, God will take, and God will do something unexpected and magnificent. Amen. Nemultus.